I was disappointed because I felt that, Samuel is not an evil young man. I felt that he was placed in a circumstance where none of us could really know how our children would react in a situation like that. It's unfortunate for him to be placed in such a dire situation as to have witnessed the murder, and although his actions may have been happenstance and against, as the judge was saying, against the law. They were saying a number of other things like the company that he keeps. Well, the company he's going to be keeping for the next 3 years is not exactly choir boy company either in prison. That's the reason why I would hope for the emphasis to be placed within the law on rehabilitation and support, counseling, as well as just punishment. I felt more of an emphasis was placed on punishment. If you want to talk about the law, there used to be a law that said black people couldn't drink from a white water faucet. That was a law. There was a law that said a black man could not look into the eyes of a white woman without getting lynched. That was also a law in this country. So just because something is a law, we have to look at justice as well. Justice prevailed over those laws, as flawed as they were, and as you know through history, they were changed. They were altered to reflect justice. And I came here today expecting justice for my young son. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I'm not saying that he was in the right for how he reacted, but I am considering the factors that placed him in that situation. Him being a young person, you have the influence of television, you have the influence of peers, you have so many negative influences that could have carried him even worse than the way he reacted, and he did not. And this is because he was raised up. He was raised well. His grandfather, O.D. Blackshear, the late Reverend Blackshear, was a man of high regard in this community. I have never been arrested. I've never been in jail. I've never been hurt another human being. He did not come from a background of violence. He did not come from a background of lawlessness. And I felt that these factors were not considered in his sentencing. I really felt that, as I said, the emphasis was placed more on the letter of the law and not so much on the circumstances that placed a young man and his reactions, reacting as a young person but being punished as an adult. That's what I'm looking at, and that's what I fear that the discrepancy was here today. So I've never been ashamed. I've lived in this community for over 50 years, participated in many community activities and done a lot of things since I was in high school, working with government, community government. And I'm really disappointed. I've never really been kind of disappointed in it until today, this day, because I really don't feel that it's not going to accomplish anything in my son's life by being warehoused, as his lawyer said, for the time period that they're putting him in here. He will have that stigma for the rest of his life. I have health issues. I have heart condition right now, and I'm being treated for that. God forbid, my brother just died 2 weeks ago of natural causes, and we just had the funeral this past week. And now, if something happens to me while my son is in that institution, I'm worried about the emotional and mental effects that can have on him. So I think it's more detrimental than constructive placing him in that particular situation. I feel that there was more supportive and things that could have been done that would have been equally in tune with justice and the law, without just, okay, well, we're just gonna move you out of the way for convenience. I feel that it's disproportionate too. You know, there's too many young black men, too many people of color, and as well as white people too. I'm not trying to put race into this. I'm not speaking from a left or a right. I'm speaking from a what's right. And we have to start doing things with these young people besides an emphasis on punishment. Because if they're not learning, if it's not giving them a guideline or giving them the encouragement and the support and the means that they need in order to learn how to become men, how to become responsible, how to second think, how to second guess your reactions, how to consider what's going to happen as a result of your choices. Okay, those things aren't focused on enough, and we have to start doing that. It's not just about going through the system, and regurgitating them out into society after they've gone to, a lot of people refer to prison as crime school. You know, prison is not always, you know, the shining example for everybody. It's not everybody that comes out of there, you know, is going to face, I can't even dream of some of the things that a young man at 17 would face in prison. And I can only think it's going to be more detrimental on that scale than constructive.
Are you looking to appeal the sentencing?
That I do not know until we talk to his lawyer, and I intend to do that. And then I would have more information about that. We, as the lawyer was saying, that there's some circumstances regarding that as well.
Bill, did you talk to him at all about what happened and why he took off and why they couldn't find the gun? Because that seemed to be what really the judge was hung up on.
Yeah, I did talk to him about that, and he cooperated. They couldn't find it because of the reason the lawyer stated. As was stated by the lawyer, it's third party. And no third party, you know, you ever try to get somebody third party to get involved in a legal matter, they're hesitant to sign their name to anything that they think is going to come back on them. And that's out of his control. But as far as I believe cooperating and going to the source and saying, look, do this, I'm willing to cooperate, I'm willing to take responsibility. My son did that. He really did. And he could not control that third party because the prosecution was not willing, or for whatever reason, to say, well, look, we want red meat. We want meat. And whoever is going to be named in this, we're going to get you. Now, that's driving people away. And one would even have to wonder of the motivation behind that.
And then what about at the scene? Did he tell you anything about what he witnessed and why he would grab a gun? Was he in fear of others getting hurt?
He was totally in fear. And I believe that he just reacted, as I said before, when he, you know, I don't know how I would react if I saw a murder before my eyes. At 17 years old, I mean, I'm 63. If I saw someone murdered, and even the President of the United States brought up the fact of he believed that teachers should have guns in school, or if someone had a weapon, they could have prevented 17 people from being shot dead. Okay? Who knows? I'm not God. I can't say how I would react, but I do know that it would be traumatic. You know, it's something that you just would not expect. You're not, as being a young man, you're not always going to react in a way that an adult would, because you're going to second guess things. You're going to be able to have that cognitive thought or foresight of, well, if I do this, this is going to happen. But things were happening like that, you know. And as I say, it's just an unfortunate circumstance for everyone involved. You know, the victim is not the only victim. All the families involved on all sides are victims as well.
You heard the judge talk about your son's, you know, prior record, yes. And that was something he took in consideration.
Yes.
And I realize, you know, you're concerned about him going to prison. Kind of my question is, eventually he returns to this community. Do you think that he's the kind of young man who can be a productive member of this community? Oh,
absolutely, absolutely. I even fault myself. As a parent, I wish I would have done more. I think that's something that maybe a lot of parents say when bad circumstances happen. I said the same thing about my brother when he passed. I wish I could have had a chance to say goodbye to him. I wish there were words that I could have said to him had I known that it would be the last time I saw him, and I didn't get that chance. And I feel that same sense of sadness and remorse in this particular case, that I wish I could have spent more time, or perhaps something that I could have done or something I could have said that would have better prepared him for such a horrendous circumstance that he was placed in order to react the way that things turned out.
Do you think there's something in our...
But as far as being a good kid, no, Samuel is well known in this community besides law enforcement. You know, it's nothing. I mean, I think that's something you can say about a lot of kids. He is not the only kid that's looked upon in negative terms by certain people.
Do you want my last question is,
sure.
Do you think there is something about society, or because you talked about, you've been your father, his grandfather,
That's
your
right.
upbringing, and how
That's right.
This doesn't reflect that family. Do you think there's something different about our community, our society, different that has made it tougher on a young man like Samuel?
Yes, I think that young people are too busy being raised and being influenced by outside forces that gain other people monetary value. There's money to be made on telling kids, yeah, be this way, have a violent attitude, or look at, you don't have to listen to the rules or anything like that. I'm not saying that's what Samuel was influenced by, but I am saying that there's more negative input than there is positive output. And so we as parents have to step up. I think the system has to step up as well, hand in hand cooperate in order to be a counterbalance to the things that are steering our young people, into the feeling of a sense of hopelessness and anger and just frustration. We need to start putting hope back inside these young people, and we need to start giving them better options. We could do more. There's always more that can be done.